Welcome, everyone. Hello. My name is Sarah Wharmby, and I wanted to kick things off by letting you know that I lured you all here under false pretenses. There are no s'mores at this fireside chat. I am sorry. I tried to find the s'more Girl Scout cookies. They are not in existence in the state of North Carolina. Uh, so on that note, you can leave if you want to. Otherwise, please stick around because we have an amazing conversation ahead of us. We're going to kick things off with introductions. I am a program officer at VentureWell. I oversee the Early Stage Innovators Program, Stage 1 and 2 of the eTeams program. More about that later. But I'd like to turn things over to my amazing colleague, Izzy, and give her the opportunity to introduce herself.
I'm Izzy Santa. I'm with Qualcomm. If you don't know us, we're a San Diego-based semiconductor company, so we power your phones, your wearable devices, connected cars in the future, and we are one of the sponsors of the eTeams, and we're so excited because honestly, without you guys, innovation is going to get stale. So it's major kudos to you.
So before we get into the conversation, I just wanted to talk a little bit about their journey to this stage. So all of these student teams have come to this conversation today from various corners of the United States, from California to Atlanta, Georgia. They made their way to Washington, D.C. this week. They have been busy in sessions learning how to tell their story, to convey the impact of their innovation, to speak to social problems that we see in our world today and how they are going to solve them. So they are doing amazing work. I'm so excited for you all to hear about them. To kick things off, I'm sure you've probably heard enough from me now. I would like to turn things over to Haley, who's going to tell you a little bit more about the eTeams program, because I'm sure you'd rather hear about it from her than me. But if you want to learn more, I'm actually doing another conversation later today at 2:30. I will be leading a conversation on all things eTeams, how you can get connected, how you can refer students, etc. But as kind of a teaser promo for that conversation, I'm going to turn things over to Haley.
Awesome. All right, hello, I'm Haley. And we've actually gone through both programs of eTeams. So there's eTeams Stage 1, which is Pioneer, and then eTeams Stage 2, which is Propel. This program was invaluable for my team and I because we actually were scientists first who fell into business. I think if you would have asked me at the beginning of my journey, I never would have said I was an entrepreneur. And really through this eTeams experience, I was able to learn that kind of anyone can become an entrepreneur if you have the grit to do it and kind of that will. And in terms of breaking down such a complex ecosystem and really kind of giving us the tools to feel like we could take it on and could also find the advisors that we needed and the expertise and maybe the areas that we were lacking. It really gave us that toolkit. Each of the programs, there's an in-person part of the course where we actually get to go and meet other teams like these wonderful folks up here, who I have had the amazing kind of time of getting to know and also getting to share the experiences. I think one of the hard parts about starting a company as a student entrepreneur is there's a lot of things that feel very isolated in terms of, you know, is it imposter syndrome or is anybody else struggling with these problems? And one of the things I think is very unique about VentureWell and the eTeams experience was getting to find that community and see that we weren't alone and kind of learn from each other's experiences. And so I think that that was a bit about the eTeams.
Yes. And can you give your pitch?
Oh, yeah. So I'm the CEO of the team 3D Ops, which is 3D organic polymer silk. And our goal is to create a new surgical glue. So we're doing that with spider silk. And the reason why we're, first of all, looking at making a new surgical glue is because currently glues can be put into two major categories. There are your super glues, which are like Dermabond, which are mechanically strong but not biologically friendly. And then surgical glues, which are currently extremely weak but are biocompatible. So we're looking to kind of fill that market gap, and the reason why we're choosing spider silk is because it is 5 times stronger than steel, 20 times more adhesive than Gorilla Glue, and 7 times more elastic than spandex. The current issue is that you can't farm spiders because they tend to cannibalize one another. So it doesn't really work out really well. So what we did is we created a robotic spider basically by modifying a 3D printer so we could actually create basically artificial spider silk to create these adhesives for use in surgery.
The next question for Evan. Tell us about the programs and resources that you found the most beneficial.
Yeah, thank you. How's it going? I'm Evan Haas. Wow, that's really loud there. So I'm the founder of Curvature, and we're helping the over 250,000 people every year that get an unnecessary spine surgery. So right now there's a terrible problem in assessment and determination for treatment for people with back pain and finding the right best option for them. So we've developed through our team at Johns Hopkins and some wonderful neurosurgeons a tool that's better able to assess and determine patient candidacy for different treatment types to make sure that people get their lives back sooner. And so to talk about the question here, so I categorized this in a number of different options coming into the resources you need as well as the mentorship. So to start that and flip the page, the program that we started in was tremendous. We're part of the CBID program, which is the Center for Bioengineering Innovation and Design at Johns Hopkins. And we were able to, for 3 months, shadow in the hospitals, both in Hopkins, in New Jersey, and then in India, to be able to find a true clinical need. And so what this really allowed us to do was to be able to find a really good understanding for the medical need and the context in which we're trying to solve it. So we had like 2,000 ideas, and many of them were terrible, really, for ideas that we wanted to go after we saw the context in which we're trying to solve. So when you go into the clinics, when you actually talk to the patients, when you talk to the doctors, they're like, get out of here. That idea is not going to work. And so being able to have that context and understanding and truly understanding your solution scape that you're trying to solve in really allowed us to be able to move a lot faster and to iterate on our design and our ideas a lot more. And then, the unsung hero of innovation is really finding the right need and finding the right problem. And being able to define that very quickly in that phase and having the mentorship to be able to do that was tremendous in our journey to be able to isolate an issue that we decided to go after. Not to mention we did have to pivot a couple of times along the way, but we were in the right space and going in that direction. And along with that is the mentorship that we needed to do this. This is both in near peers, so we were very blessed to have fellows in our program where we have people who have been starting and working on these same projects in the biomedical space for a year, and so they're near peer mentors, and they're great because you can just shoot them a text and be like, hey, how do we do this FDA thing? How do you do this regulatory thing? What is this supposed to look like? Hey, we have to put together a pitch deck. Can we see yours? And then they can just send it and have a really awesome relationship with that. And so having those people that are really comfortable to be able to talk with in mentorship was amazing. And then also having people who are 5, 6, 7 years down the line who have already raised money and having VC and are in the similar space, we've had the opportunity to network and find those in our mentorship network as well, and they've been tremendous. And then additionally, VentureWell grants, so coming into the money side of things outside of the mentorship is making sure that you have the resources, the training, and the support necessary to do that. eTeams has been tremendous to be able to give us some of those tools to be able to make us more effective when talking to the business community. I'm a mechanical engineer and so this is all new. And so really having the opportunity to learn and get that dialed in an environment where you can fail a lot. I think that comes from VentureWell. I think that comes from a lot of accelerators and other things that we did. So being able to do accelerator at Hopkins and then as well as Nucleate, which is a national accelerator, really helped us move our business model forward. And then pitch competitions also for funding. So to abbreviate this, the main categories of support and the main categories that we've felt that have been pushing us forward is 1, programmatic, ability to be able to find the need and isolate the need. 2, mentorship, near peer and longer term. Grants and funding coming from VentureWell and other sources, accelerators to be able to refine the business model, and then pitch competitions and anything along the line to be able to give it a little bit more capital and improve both the business pitch and your ideas.
So I think Evan's story does a really good job at demonstrating, excuse me, the typical journey of an e-team. So they're coming to our program, having participated in programs at their university. They've done customer discovery. They've pivoted multiple times, and they're at the point where they are ready to dig into customer discovery, which Evan is doing at an amazing pace. and ready to engage with our network. Chandra, I'm wondering if you can answer the same question. Introduce yourself and talk about, your journey to VentureWell, your involvement with CGIU.
Yeah, hello, my name is Chandra. I'm part of the team called Overdose Guardian. Overdose Guardian is making addiction healthcare more equitable and accessible. Overdose Guardian is a fast, personalized, and non-invasive wearable device, like an automated life alert for opioids. Overdose situations are identified using machine learning, and users are rapidly connected to treatment. We're the only solution that does this non-invasively. My journey in entrepreneurship started with just meeting somebody at my college. I was a freshman, big, starry-eyed, had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And I found the coolest person in the room, and I was like, I want to do what you do. And they connected me to an entrepreneurship incubator. I was like, cool, let's go do that. Let's make it happen. And it was his passion and his drive for something that he cared about deeply that encouraged me to stick to his leg and just be like him and embody him. It was there that I met my co-founders for Overdose Guardian, and things took off. But it was really the accessibility to that undergraduate club, that incubator, that drove me into entrepreneurship in the first place. And accessibility is going to be a big theme for my entrepreneurship journey since then. After that, we had been innovating, getting to know each other, understanding the space for a few months when we encountered our first opportunity for funding. This was also super accessible because it was a program that my university had sponsored to give students who had no idea what they're doing an opportunity to go test hypotheses. So with a small grant of I think it was $1,000, maybe $2,000, I was able to conduct end user interviews. I was able to get people on the phone and talk to people that I would not have access to otherwise and ask for their opinion, ask where their pain points were, and understand their problem. After maybe about a year or 8 months, about 2 semesters, we had been looking for ideas, looking for products, looking for solutions. But being an entrepreneur really didn't make a lot of sense to me. And that's when we found VentureWell. VentureWell has been the cornerstone of my entrepreneurship journey so far. And it's for the same reason. VentureWell, as I like to describe it, is a community of people who are amazing. This is innovators, it's mentors, it's potential investors, and my journey as an E-Team Stage 1 in the summer of 2020 through the Verizon Challenge program was super accessible because I could ask anybody anything under the entire sun. I didn't know how to do customer discovery interviews. I didn't know how to get mentors. I didn't know how to pitch to investors. I'm still working on all those things, of course. But being able to ask people how to do it, see what their process was, learn from their examples, was not only amazing for me, but also really easy because it was super accessible. Everyone here is incredibly nice and very, very willing to give their time and energy. Currently, my team is in Stage 2, the Propel program. We're testing out our business model. We're hoping to get some pilots done soon. And I think going back to my initial point, having a drive, a passion, and an accessible group of people to support me is the reason why I became an entrepreneur in the first place, the reason why I'm still an entrepreneur, and the reason why I'll continue to be an entrepreneur for the rest of my life, quite frankly.
I hope you know that clip is going to be used in VentureWell promo for years to come. So thanks for delivering that perfectly. I want to turn things over to Alyssa. You have had such an amazing journey to E-Teams. You have had some huge changes to your business model and your beachhead market as a result of engagement with mentors and the customer discovery process. I'm wondering if you could speak to that experience and also tell us about the amazing work you're doing.
Okay. Raise your hand if you think they coached us. It's all positive. Every single one. Raise your... The thing is, it's all 100% true. And I'm going, yeah, that and that and that. So my name is Alyssa Russell. I'm founder and CEO of Ready. Ready is a for-profit workforce training platform, and we reskill young adults, specifically 16 to 26-year-olds, and we do that using a virtual reality training tool. We have over 100 simulations in roughly 8 industries that are ready to go. What we do is help young adults overcome many of the barriers that they face when they try to access traditional workforce training programs. As you know, that could be the Department of Labor, adult ed nonprofit, or even a high school. So by gamifying the learning process, we say we move young adults from the back of the line straight to the interview. At Ready, we really work to close the skills gap for young adults, but we really work to establish a new standard in workforce training. So to talk about how I got here and what specifically the mentorship has done for the business, I came into entrepreneurship like everyone. I kind of just fell into it. I'm an educator, and there was a professor at Georgia State University. Her name is Dr. Isabel Monlouis. She was the recipient of a grant from VentureWell. And her grant funded a program called the Women Lead Program. And she called me to be a GRA because I'm in education. That means I'm good at administrative tasks. So that's exactly why she called me. And she heard that I had a business that I was just calling. No, I'm a teacher and I do 5-week GED programming. But she said I was an entrepreneur. And with a lot of coaching, I finally came over and got tuition paid for the semester. And I kept meeting all, helping and supporting. I'm like, y'all are getting ready for what? E-team. She was coaching 3 E-team groups. And I didn't know what that was, but I kept hearing about VentureWell and, they actually pay for this program and they pay for this. Who are they? Who are I had no idea. But over the course of a year and a half, I'm working, supporting all these teams. I'm watching them do pitches, and it was all for this E-team thing. And I was thinking, and she's also working on my business, which at that time was literally a 5-week training program in person. I did not have any tech component. But as I saw her work with her teams and watch them pitch, I was like, maybe one day, probably not. I'm never going to be that good. Well, today I'm sitting here talking to you because she was that good due to grant support from VentureWell, which gave her the tools to be able to support my business and grow it into being an ed tech company. I first entered the E-team space was through the Forward for Good Challenge with one of our VentureWell partners, which was the Clinton Global Initiative. I was a fellow with CGIU, learned about that opportunity in a newsletter, and actually my team was one of the winning teams of the program, which led us to be an E-team Propel. And I can say the biggest part of VentureWell for me is the people. The people are extraordinary. What VentureWell to me does best is not just the money and the programming, it's the human capital. So in Atlanta, there's a guy named Jason. I've probably met with him, talked to him 3 times. He almost says no words. But when he speaks, it's like, this is the thing to change, and he's done. There's a woman named Trisha I think she's in California. She probably spent the most time on my business. She gave so many tools. I implemented all of them in the last 6 months. I now have a COO because she told me to stop working by myself. She told me to stop going after government contracts and to consider a middleman and work with K through 12. We're doing it. We're waiting on the Title I grant right now. So they know what they're talking about. And I used to not be coachable. So when it came to, I wasn't. If you think about putty, after a while it turns hard. I'm more like concrete instantly. So I'm so glad I had that mentor from Georgia State who had worked with VentureWell and was like, this is what they expect. This is what it's going to look like. So she got me to the point where I was ready to actually join E-teams and really be successful. The team here wants to see you grow. They want to see your business succeed. They don't have all the answers. I learned that from Christina. My CEO was just saying in the last interview, Christina came, we were at Microsoft Nerd maybe a month or so ago, and someone asked a question. She was like, you know what? I don't know. And she said, you guys in the back, do you know? And they were like, we don't know. She was like, you know what? We don't know. But we're going to find out. So just that authenticity of saying we don't have all the answers, but we're here to walk this path with you and help you find the solutions. And Sarah and Cara, honestly, they're part of my team. I get more emails from them than from my real team members. So they're part of my team, honestly. And it's only been, it's been like a year, over a year and a half, and I know all their names and where they're at because they take the time. They actually take the time. I don't even know all my interns' name, and they've been with me for 2 years. But I know the VentureWell. No, seriously, I don't. One of them, I accidentally called. He was like, that's not my name. I said, you respond to it. He was like, I didn't really think you cared. Yeah, so I really don't. But the VentureWell team, they are there. They are present, everyone, from people who are in high leadership roles to people that are doing the administrative back of house roles. So the mentorship and the support, it has been everything that's driven the Ready business. I think you asked about what's next for us. Besides tonight, find the Ready booth amongst the other 7 teams. But we're in a space of seeking out our first customer. We have all of our tech tools together. We have all of our applications and SIM. So we're really seeking school district customers, specifically alternative schools. And later this year, we're looking to do our first pre-seed round because we have a mobile training unit. Our big goal is to get into rural areas. Since everyone's now paying like $10 for a head of lettuce that used to be 99 cents, we think we need to do a little literacy training with some of these farmers, because I think only 16% of farmers actually do associate's degree or something. So we want to take our mobile training unit into rural areas and do a bit of literacy training so they can be more effective, so we can pay less for lettuce. I'm appalled at the cost of lettuce. So yeah, revamping our mobile training unit is our next big thing for the company, and also securing our first customer. Thank you.
You said earlier, I did not see myself as an entrepreneur, and I hear that from so many students. Like, I'm not an entrepreneur. I have an image in my head of what an entrepreneur is, and I think it's the Warren Buffett type, like you mentioned, and that's not me. So I'm wondering if you can speak to your experience. Like, why didn't you feel an entrepreneur, and what was that like light bulb moment for you when you're like, this is me?
So, as I said, I was in the College of Education and Human Development. I do not have a business degree. I'm not a technologist, but it was a professor in the College of Business and Education and Innovation who reached out to me. And someone else had heard about, that there's this teacher, but she has this cool way of teaching GED. She has great results in 5 weeks. And that professor came to me and was like, hey, come over to E&I. I'll give you the scholarship. I really think I can help your business. What business? I'm a teacher. I'm just going into classrooms. So it was that investment and interest from that advisor, who is still the advisor to this day. And it's when she sat down with that business model canvas. When we went through that, I was so like, I don't know what the revenue streams, what do you mean revenue streams? I really do this for free most of the time. So yeah, completing my first ever business model canvas was like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur now. But I can say that still, even today, sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. About maybe 3 weeks ago, I was at Vanderbilt, and it was the Clinton Global Initiative, and the Clinton Foundation contacted me to come speak on a panel. Dr. Chelsea Clinton interviewed me on the topic of technology and building an inclusive workforce. And when they called, I was like, yeah, this is Alyssa. Yeah, ready? Yeah, I'm aware about CGIU. Yes, great. What? No, this is Alyssa in Atlanta. And the lady was like, I know, we're asking you to do a speaking engagement. So Dr. Clinton, which Clinton? Chelsea Clinton? I was like, no, this is Alyssa at Red. And she was like, I understand that. She said, you were in CGIU, and then you're in VentureWell. And I was like, yeah. I was like, oh, yes, of course I can come. But I was still like, who, me? So sometimes it escapes me that, no, like, I'm a legit ed tech founder. Yeah.
And no one embodies the entrepreneurial spirit like Alyssa. Not only is she the CEO of Ready, she also has her own catering business. Like, she is living the entrepreneurial life.
I'd also like to give a small story. Thank you for asking the question. I remember that moment very specifically, and I'd like to share it with you all. So like I mentioned before, the reason I got into it was because I saw somebody take ownership in a problem. And the reason why I now call myself an entrepreneur is that I felt that ownership myself. So after we got the grant to do end user interviews, I remember the first time that I got on the phone with one of the people in the populations we were trying to reach. I remember them describing to me exactly how difficult it was to live with an addiction, how difficult it was to not be able to speak to their family about it, how difficult it was to just meet basic human needs and survive. And in that moment, I realized that I wanted to solve this problem, and I wanted to help this person. And then I realized that nobody else is doing it, and that if the problem is going to get solved, it's going to be with me and my efforts. I was fortunate enough to be able to have a community of people supporting me to do that. People that joined my team, people that gave me mentorship, people that gave me funding. But that moment when I decided that this is a problem that needs to be solved right now, that was the moment that I think I became an entrepreneur. And I think that's the moment that I'm going to live with, and it's going to keep driving me to be an entrepreneur for the rest of my life.
Any other questions?
I have a question for you guys. So you're entrepreneurs, you're inventors. I want to add another label, patent holders. Obviously, you need to protect your ideas, and so I'm curious to hear how that process has gone for you, for those who have undergone it, for those who are tinkering about it, and what resources you think you need to put you through the finish line.
Expensive. Oh, we'll turn this on. Make sure this is recorded here. Yeah. Expensive. Yeah, so I had a startup that I started in my undergrad that has a patent filed, and then I just filed another patent for my graduate startup as well. So, yeah, it's a long experience. I think I got a lot of conflicting advice when it comes to patents. I think in academia, patents, well, they're paid for by the university in tech transfer, which is a very different deal than a startup where you're going to own the IP and try to take this out and then spin it out into something, into a company. And so having that $20,000 IP bill that, comes into your inbox as a student is a lot. It's shocking. You're like, what? 6 hours? And it's that much? Huh? Okay. So it's a very different world. And I think you have to be very ready and understanding of what it's going to take and how long it's going to take to be able to have this, ear inflection. And I think you also need a very, very transparent understanding of who has the ownership of the patent. Are you going to have royalties? Are you going to have rights to it? Is it going to be assigned to you? Are you going to have exclusive rights? What is this going to look like down the line? And then is this patent actually going to be the value-driving document for your business, or is this something that's like a secondary piece? And so, looking about how much time, how much value you can derive from your patent, and at what stage you should patent. I mean, obviously a provisional is nice. Obviously, it protects you for a year. You've got a year after public disclosure. You can kind of push these things off a little bit, but also like you're a student. You're asked to present at conferences, and I think many times we went into our first, presentation, and somebody's like, "Wait, you haven't filed a patent on this. This is like patentable." And so I think there's a tremendous amount of confusion and a tremendous amount of, conflicting viewpoints of when you should patent, who owns the patent, how you should go about this, how you should pay for the patent, that I think is very, very complex and only even more complicated by you being in a university system and being a student. And so I think it's very clear, especially as, leaders and talking to these inventors, to truly lay out what it means to have IP, what it's going to be value. How do you talk about a presentation in a non-IP disclosing manner? Because 90% of the time you can do that, and you can make great presentations, and you can talk about your research and everything in a way that doesn't jeopardize your ability to file that patent. But there's a lot of education, a lot of things that has to come around this, and honestly, going after a patent is not for every business either. And so understanding which businesses need patents, understanding which companies are best apt to have a portfolio to protect themselves, and which companies are, probably just an execution problem where you have to be the best, the fastest, and provide the most, value to your customer, and that's your protection. So I think there's a lot of, it's complex. I have advised a number of because now I'm a near peer mentor for a team in pediatric cardiology, and so I've gone through the patent spiel with them, and it is complex from case to case to case. You have to be very well versed, very connected with your technology office as well to be able to give good advice on these domains for patents.
Yeah. Patents. Let's just say I know I'm not going to law school. Our patent journey, we actually got our patent before we were 100% sure about whether or not we wanted to be a company. That was because one of the things that we've heard kind of as scientists was the fact that if you come across something that's very exciting, you do want to look into patenting it. We're very lucky because of the fact that we were undergrads and the research had at that point been fully self-funded. We were actually able to own our own IP. That's like a very unique, I think, situation for a startup that's at a university. We even kind of we've continued to talk to our tech transfer office about, are you guys sure that this is okay? And they're going, yeah, no, you guys are in the clear. And that's kind of come with two things. So the first part of it was because we were able to own our own IP, it was very much a navigating that system kind of blindly. We're very lucky in the sense of asking around to enough family friends and really reaching out to our network. They're patent lawyers, and we were able to ask them a bunch of questions and get advice, as well as have them kind of talk through things with us. I think one of the things that was very eye-opening was if you're in a hardware or kind of serious tech-based IP, realizing that just having the design figured out and even the prototype figured out doesn't necessarily mean that that's what your IP looks like, because you need your IP to be more generalized. Because you don't want it to, like, one of the things that we had explained to us was you don't want your IP to be so specific that somebody could come in and just change one thing, and all of a sudden they've now technically created a new thing. So for us, I think that that was actually a really great thought exercise to go through the IP process, because we were able to think about what are the other potential applications of this. You know, could we potentially modify this system in these different ways? And I think actually doing that early on really helped us kind of not get pigeonholed and kind of have these blinders with our technology, and actually helped us whenever it came to pivoting as we continued on, because we already knew, oh, hey, we've already thought about this solution, and it's already currently covered by our IP. So that's kind of the first piece of the IP story with us. I think the second part of it has been realizing when you have to look at getting new IP. So for us, there's been a lot of new discoveries and kind of adaptations, and so we've had to start looking at whether or not we're going to have to file now a secondary patent. And I think that that process is one that there's a little bit less information to find on. It's a bit harder to navigate about, you know, when do you need to find a second patent, and when is that kind of chance, and how important is it to do that early on if you already have the first one. And so that's kind of an area that I think is a bit grayer, and it's a bit more difficult that we're currently navigating. But in saying all of that, one of the things that has been nice about having our IP is it's allowed a lot of flexibility, and it's also allowed in terms of reaching out to external companies about potential partnerships down the road. They're very excited about the fact that that IP is owned by our startup, and the fact that there is kind of that freedom, because for them, they see the fact that we can kind of go anywhere. We're not necessarily having to pay royalties to the university as a positive. And so that's kind of been our IP journey with everything. Yeah.
Kind of following up on that string, I feel like when it comes to IP, there's lots of things that later down the line come to a head, and you're like, man, I wish I knew this earlier, because I would have done things totally differently. Do you have any, Chandra and Alyssa, do you have any examples of like things that you wish you knew earlier that would have made an impact on where you stand today?
So, common theme, accessibility. The patent process and the IP process in general is tantalizing. And as an undergraduate student, every opportunity to make this more accessible was warmly welcomed. There are 3 programs that I'd like to highlight. The first one was with a free lawyer. It was like a free law program at my university. They helped initially coordinate the tech transfer office patent that we were basing our initial pre-processing technology off of, to get it into the hands of the people, or my co-founders and I. The second one was, oh man, I'm gonna skip to the third one. Sorry. The third one was VentureWell. I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago. We had Doug Portnow speak. I only remember that because I wrote it down in my notes. But he was a patent attorney in the medical device industry. We're a medical device, medical software. And he told us he told me very directly that you don't actually need to patent a machine learning algorithm. You don't need to copyright your data set. These things can be taken as somewhat of a trade secret, like the Coca-Cola recipe, and that's how that had been done in the past, and that's the solution that we are going to do into the future. It's not that I wish I had this earlier, but it's the resources that I have now at my disposal that has defined that pathway forward. I do remember the second one. So the second program was actually classes at my university. There was this upper level undergraduate class called Medical Software Design, fits right under the umbrella of Overdose Guardian. And the core curriculum was going over examples of the regulatory process and intellectual property disputes that happened for large biotech and medical technology companies in the past. And that, having it accessible into my undergraduate degree and curriculum, and it counts towards my major of neuroscience, was invaluable. I got to, instead of spending my time, instead of not wasting my time in college is valuable. Instead of spending my time taking introductory classes or fulfilling distribution requirements, I was able to directly work on something tangible that would benefit my company and my team. So those 3 programs I'm very grateful for.
So when it comes, I think it's on. So when it comes to IP and patents, we haven't really entered into this space because if you can't tell, I am the secret sauce. So yeah, we haven't gotten there yet. But what I wish I had known sooner was that I could be in this space. As I said, I came from a space of education. I started out working as a teacher, then I moved into the nonprofit sector and leadership roles. Then I went to get a master's in the College of Education, focused on literacy. So not knowing that, oh, entrepreneurship was a part of my journey, that I was an entrepreneur. So I say that to say for all the instructors in this space or department heads in entrepreneurship and E&I, please cross-pollinate. You know, whether it's creating co-branded material with the art department, the music department, because there's someone who's like wants to open this very cool art store that's for kids with disabilities, and they don't know that they're an entrepreneur also, so they are missing out on all these tools, your pitch competitions, your free workshops, so because there's not cross-pollination at university campuses. And Georgia State had recently was trying to start doing this process, but it just so happened they had a professor who was very eager, and she came to me. So I know that now I get so many instructors like, hey, you started this whole business. I see you're doing like VentureWell. The social media is so great. They always ask about VentureWell. They're like, how did you do that? Because I thought you were a teacher. Come to find out, I'm a teacher and I'm an ed tech founder. I'm all of the above. So if you start extending yourself to the other departments, and maybe when you have the info sessions, sending flyers to those departments, or find that one person in that department who's like, sure, I'd be happy to tell my class about that, or bring it to them. But yeah, start cross-pollinating at the university campuses so that other students in music and art and psychology who are thinking, oh, I'm going to I have a cool way of doing X, Y, Z, and don't know that they're also an entrepreneur, so that, you know, we can have access to your immense and awesome resources.
I did have one mistake that I do want to caveat this. I'm not a lawyer. This is not law advice. So I did make a pretty big mistake that was costly in my first patent that we did, where I had a meeting to go sell our product in a week, and we talked to our lawyer, and they're like, oh, wait, what? You want this in a week? You're going to go sell and have this meeting? And they're like, okay, well, that ruins your PCT application and your international application. So there are different timelines for public disclosure that does come along, especially if you're outside the United States and you plan to go worldwide. Do look at timeline, do look at filing and these other things. And those are just not we didn't know those. We just looked at the USPTO to figure that out. But if you go to sell your device, it can also destroy your ability to patent widely. But then it really comes in the conversation, and how do you lead these students in the discussion of, do you actually think you're going to be worldwide? What does the market actually look like? Because PCT applications are not cheap when you have to go prosecute in multiple different jurisdictions. So having those conversations and having those very upfront, and having that knowledge to do that is definitely a gap that we messed up on our first go round.
Opportunity. I didn't know if we had a question in the audience.
Yeah, my question is for those working in the healthcare area. I think that's a space where you can.
I'm very happy to talk about this because we found out about what an exit strategy was from VentureWell. Something that we were actually able to talk to them about. One of our mentors was actually familiar with the med tech space. And he was like, what's your exit strategy? And we were like, to leave the building? Like, what are you talking about? And that's whenever he explained to us the fact that, the best way to really believe that, if you want to get a medical product to market, is you're going to need to try and get acquired. Just realistically, it's nearly impossible to do it from a startup. And because of those conversations, and he kind of pointed us in the direction of, hey, go and look at these major companies and go and see what their current acquisition portfolios look like. And if you see a company in there that you want to maybe reach out to that got acquired, you can maybe have a conversation with them about that. And so kind of in doing that, that's actually informed what our next steps are looking like. So for example, we're looking at potentially Baxter, 3M, J&J Labs. They all actually have these venture lab kind of collaborations where you apply and you have the opportunity to actually collaborate with a big company like that in the hopes of them later acquiring you. And that's kind of how VentureWell has helped us realize that that is a pathway to do that, because otherwise I don't think I ever would have been like, oh, let me go look at Johnson & Johnson. And so one of the things I think VentureWell does best is breaking down these really complex and kind of really difficult to navigate systems into those steps of, okay, whenever you've done this much validation, this is whenever then you approach a company like this, because you want to make a great first impression. You don't want to contact them whenever you still don't have a prototype and you have zero data, because they're going to go, why are you wasting our time? But once you hit this stage, this is the time that maybe you start opening up those conversations and you start kind of looking at these pathways. And so I think that that's how VentureWell at least helped our company in building that pathway and understanding how to realistically get this commercialized.
I think that the resources and the mentorship that VentureWell provides is phenomenal. I would like to additionally highlight one aspect that has been crucial to me and my company. And that's just the frame of mind that you have in approaching these conversations and developing your product. What I mean by that is, how do you know you're developing a product that people actually want to buy in the medtech space? Being like in the area and in circles at my university that are well versed in medicine from the research side, it's really easy to go talk to doctors and say, oh yeah, that's something I would use. Oh yeah, that's something that would make my life easier. Yeah, this is something I think my patients would like. But how do you know that there is an actual market and a person and a company who would actually buy that product to get it into the hands of the end users? So VentureWell specifically taught us how to locate that person with the purchasing power parity in the medical system, how to get into their, how to get a conversation with them, how to get in the room with them, and also how to ask them questions to define the product that you're going to build for them and the metrics that you're going to work for to improve their ability and solve the problem that you both are trying to solve. And that process is invaluable and is also extrapolable to all different sorts of the business. Specifically with medicine, it is so difficult to go through the regulatory process. It's so difficult to conduct clinical trials. An FDA Class 3 medical device clinical trial application is measured in feet, not in pages. And navigating that process is incredibly difficult and not something that you can just say, this is how they did it, so this is how we're going to do it. Having the process to do it yourself and the mentorship to go about it to support your individual way is what VentureWell does best, and something that we've directly benefited from in the past year.
So medtech, and yeah, a lot of upfront investment. This is what adds the biggest risk. If I could consolidate this to 3 pieces, I would say 1, de-risk, de-risk, de-risk. Figure out the most critical points for your company of failure, and then fail fast, right? And so VentureWell does a good job of talking about this and isolating and looking at all of the different quadrants of the business and looking at all different aspects, whether it's technology, whether it's the actual sales pathway, ability and willingness to pay, the end consumer, the exit strategy, all of those things. Figure out your most critical points of weakness and test that as quickly as possible, and then fail as quickly as possible to do that. I think that's a very common, that's a very common phrasing that you'll hear everywhere. But VentureWell does a good job of providing that framework to expand this beyond. And then 2, especially, provisionals give you a year. So that's really nice. They're not that expensive, especially because you can write a lot of it yourself. If you look at a bunch of patents, you can spend a couple of months and get that together. And I would probably do that before, potentially, not legal advice again, but probably have a provision in before you're going to talk to like a J&J, a Stryker, or something like that. Probably a wise idea. But talking to clinicians, talking to people in your network, especially going around this not giving keyword any enabling technology in these conversations, I think is really key to be able to further de-risk that as you go using a provisional. And then 3rd is move fast. You got to figure out how you move as quickly as possible, and then find a space and keep probing at it to be able to get to market quicker than 5-10 years, whatever it is. And it also depends on, are you a pharmaceutical? Are you a device? Are you a class 3, class 2, class 1 unregulated? What are you? And so making those decisions and also aligning the strategic exit opportunities for that. We're seeing us as a go-to-market product you'll probably be a class 3 PMA, I assume, so you're going to need to be a licensed acquisition. And so all of these have a different tail end to this to determine where you're going to go and a different de-risking strategy to be able to do that. And so, yeah, I think those are my 3 things, which is de-risk and fail fast. And then 2, provisionals give you a little bit of time and grace to be able to further test this and take it to the next stage, and then move fast, get those critical experiments in as quickly as you can to be able to make sure that, before that year runs out with the provisional, before you have to complete the filing and have a really big expenses.
So you'll see that not only are these teams experts in their innovation, but they're also budding patent attorneys. You're never going to be out of school. So we have time for about 1 or 2 more questions from the audience. Anyone? All right. Well, I want to ask you, what's the note that you want to end on? I'm going to give you some next steps for where we're going to go from here. But any final pieces of advice or words of wisdom that you all want to share?
I think for me, one of the most important things that we were very lucky to have was that at our school we had somebody who was out and looking for people who didn't know that they wanted to be entrepreneurs, but just were passionate. I think something that is one of the difficulties within academia is people get siloed. We, even now, looking for opportunities, will occasionally struggle to find them because of the fact that we've kind of been put into a category of our background as scientists, right? And so we have to go and try and hunt down the business newsletters. We have to go and try and find these innovation newsletters and accelerator programs and opportunities. And so I think kind of trying to create more of these, I liked the way that you said it, like cross-pollination kind of programs and options for students. Like a lot of times we just don't know it's out there, and that those opportunities exist for us. As somebody who is, again, purely science at the very beginning, but is now 100% entrepreneurship, and I couldn't imagine being happier doing anything else. There are us in existence, and it just takes one person to reach out and say like, hey, you can do this, I promise, like I'll hold your hand and teach you what business means and what a market size is. And so that's kind of my thing to end on, is that we're out there, we're excited, we just need to see that those opportunities are available.
My last word of advice will be accessibility. How many people in the audience are educators in entrepreneurship and innovative spaces? Show of hands. Quite a few. I feel like it was the majority of people at this conference. The entrepreneurship, the bug, so to say, catches us all at different times. For me, it was at 18. And I think something that was done best for me to get on this track was not somebody like an educator finding me to join a program. It was rather just showing me that the bug I had was in fact for entrepreneurship. So that's what I'm going to encourage everyone here to do today, is don't look for students who want to be entrepreneurs, show students that they can be entrepreneurs. And more so, equip them with the tools and the resources that they can use to solve problems, be a better person, be a better teammate. And I think that there's so much value in any small bit of programming that, or any part of any program that you could give them. And doing that will be immensely beneficial to society in the future. So thank you for all you do as well.
Yeah, I would echo that as well. I mean, first off, thanks for being here, really. Because I wouldn't be here if I didn't have awesome educators and people in our network like you all to be able to enable this. The biggest thing really is your ability to co-sign and help advocate for student entrepreneurs is absolutely critical. This is such a hard space, and there are so many other things going on that it is absolutely necessary to have somebody to advocate. I mean, I can't go too deep into the details, but I was, at one point told that I might get kicked off campus for, some work I was doing on a startup at one point. But then I had mentors like, no, that's absolutely ridiculous. You're not going to get kicked off campus. You're okay. Here are the lines. Here's what you can use resources for. Here's what you can't. I didn't step over the line anyway, just, so everybody can get that on record. But that's a pretty scary thing. And there's a lot of misconceptions in entrepreneurship, and there's a lot of misconceptions around what this is, especially with the first question of even knowing if you're an entrepreneur, and having somebody here that's like, hey, it's okay to fail. Here are the resources. Let's push through this. Let's understand this. And having the knowledge and the resources and having just a point of contact that they're able to talk to and understand what the next journey and what this journey looks like is absolutely enabling. And so thank you for being here to be able to do that. I wouldn't be here without some amazing mentors along the way that have made me even more passionate and excited to do this. I'm thinking about it now. I need to go reach out because I was working on a VR startup in the like venue space business, and now I'm in medicine and biotechnology. So I probably should go reach out to my original mentors and thank them because it's a long journey, a lot of pivots, and I wouldn't be here without them.
Yep, same. I just wanted to say keep up the good work. I know this room is mostly comprised of educators, people working in higher ed space, and you chose with your minimal budgets, as I know, to come to Open. And Open is not inexpensive. I was like, thank God they gave us a stipend. So you chose to use your funding for the year to come here to learn about what other schools are doing, how you create entrepreneurial labs, how do you have more diversity in your programming, what do entrepreneurs really need, how to engage alum. I saw many of the topics. So the fact that you chose to be here says you have a significant love for the work and that you want to be there for the students. So I want to say keep up the good work. Keep applying for the grants because this is what happens when you do what you do. This is the result.
Izzy, any final words of wisdom?
Oh man,
That's a hard act to follow.
I would say fatigue will come, but fatigue will go. And you need to surround yourself with good headspace and a good network that you're willing to be vulnerable in order to keep learning. So I think as long as you practice those two things, you will all be very, very successful.
Thank you for that. Am I lucky or what? Like, I spent the whole day yesterday with them, just like telling their stories, hanging out. I have the coolest job.